Hello, everybody. I'm David Hill. I manage the Quality and Research Division along with the PIP and QIIP grants offered by the Department of Human Services. I'm here today with Kim Class and Teresa Lewis. We're going to give an overview of the QUIP program. Well, the question first is how to use this video. This is going to be on YouTube. So you can see the description down below, and inside there's going to be timestamps for what area you'd like to watch. You can see the whole video. In the future, if you want to skip ahead to the data section or how to choose section, you can see the times down below and you can choose exactly which one you'd like to refresh yourself on. Now, the PIP program, PIPP, is a performance-based incentive payment program offered by DHS where you can get revenue to work on a specific project. Now, that revenue can be taken back from you, unlike QUIP. Today's training is going to be focused on the QUIP program, but if you do want to know more about the PIP program, just look down below in the description. There's a link to our boot camp where you can get more information on that program. So as we take a deeper dive into the QUIP program, let me explain the acronym QUIP, QIIP, Quality Improvement Incentive Payment Program. And this is in statute, Minnesota Statute 256R.39, established in 2013. And it's up to 0.8% of the operating rate payments to be given out, which comes out to $3.50 per resident day at the max. And this is for improving a clinical or quality of life area selected by the facility. This is in statute to be paid for one full rate year for up to $3.50. Keep in mind there are no reporting requirements for QUIP. It's a risk-free program to help your facility improve and gain revenue. So how much can you make? Well, let's see what happens here. Let's look at some numbers. Let's say, for example, you have a facility and you have 30,000 resident days and you hit 350. Your facility can make up to $105,000. If that same facility at 30,000 days was to make 50 cents, they're going to make $15,000. So you can see the numbers and how they work. If you were to hit a small amount and still have enough resident days, you can still have a good margin of revenue for your facility to help your operations. If you had 50,000 resident days and you hit 50 cents, you'll hit $25,000. If you have 5,000 resident days and you hit the full amount of 350, you get $17,500. Keep in mind also that there's no risk involved. If you do not hit your goal, there's no money to be taken back from you. You just will not get any money for trying QUIP, but you still have a chance of earning something if you give it a shot. QUIP pays for any amount of improvement. Even if you hit a small improvement and got up to 50 cents, that would still be up to $15,000 if you had 30,000 resident days. So any improvement at all will help your facility gain revenue. So you can see right away on how this program does help gain revenue for the facility and at the same time helping improve quality for your residents. So that's a main intro for our QUIP program. And at this time, I'm going to pass it on to Ms. Teresa Lewis.
Thank you, Dave. I'm Teresa Lewis, and I'm really happy to be speaking with you today and getting to share with you about the QUIP program. I am lucky to be working on Dave's team in quality and research for nursing facilities, and I am a research scientist in the team and involved in knowing how the different quality measures work and how the QUIP program generally works. So for your first step, pretty much for any of our quality programs, for your first step, you'll want to head on over to our provider portal. The provider portal is your one-stop place to get information about how your facility is doing on any of DHS's quality measures or quality improvement programs. It's if you're in doubt, that's kind of your place to go. And so I will take you over there now. One nice thing about the provider portal is, if you're kind of not remembering the address, you're always welcome to just, go to your preferred search engine, put in DHS nursing facility, and provider portal should even be the first thing you see, or second thing you see is, even before you get to the words provider portal, it should come up very quickly for you. But regardless, there is the address for you if you need it. Once you're there, you will see a login box here. And I do need to pause and mention something about the login situation. Each facility has one login name and password that DHS assigns to it. And we're wishing that, in some ways it would be nice if we could give out more than one, but that has its own drawbacks, I'm sure, because it could just present a lot of confusion for folks. So because we only have one, we need to only distribute it to the administrator with your facility. If you are the administrator, no worries if you don't remember it or never got it. You feel free to please contact anyone on staff in our area, and we are glad to point you in the right direction to get it to you. And also the contact person who is kind of assigned to do it is listed in the QIIP materials that you'll see online. If you are not the administrator and are wondering, well, how could I get access? Then the tricky part is that there is a kind of facility by facility choice about how folks want to handle that. Administrators are welcome to share their login with anyone they like. They could share it with the director of nursing, share it with the director of social services. Often the business office folks have that access because they need it to do cost report information sharing with us. So it will really depend on your facility. Your first step is to just contact your administrator if you are not that person and find out if you can get that login information from them. If they're not comfortable sharing that with you, that's just fine. And what you'll need to do then is just kind of follow along in this video, and we'll point out what to ask for from them. Maybe they'll just log you in and let you have some time on the site, or else maybe you can just let them know, I need XYZ report here. Here's where to find it. All that being said, let's get on into the portal and start looking at some data. Also, a side note, if you happen to come across something that looks like this when you're trying to get into the portal, don't panic. This is a perfectly good, fine thing to see. It just means that your portal access has timed out. And what you'll need to do is try again. Once you've logged in, or once somebody has done it on your behalf, you will see a home page for your facility. There's quite a bit of information here, lots of good reference material for you. Just for the purposes of this video, we'll be focusing on this bar at the top. This is your kind of direction bar, or your roadmap for this website. And the one we'll be really spending a lot of time on is here, right in the middle. This is the QIIP tab. The QIIP tab houses pretty much everything you'll need for the QIIP program. That's the beauty of the QIIP program. It's really pretty straightforward and easy to handle. At the top of the page, you'll see this long list of stack of web links. These are the history of all of the past available rounds of QIIP that your facility may or may not have participated in, and the information available for each of those rounds for your facility. When you get into one of the reports, which we will do a little bit later, you will see that the report for an active round that people are still working on will show a sheet showing you your options for that round and what you can choose to work on. When you are looking backwards in time at ones that have already finished up, you'll see like this 2023 that's already paying out right now. You'll see that that one instead will show you results reports about how you did. So it's a really nice reference to quickly see, hey, how have we done in the past on this option versus that option? Looking further down the page, you'll see just how easy it is to sign up. All we ask of you is some basic contact information of the person who is actually filling in the form here and your administrator. A lot of times that will be the same person, and that is great. Under that, you'll see a drop-down list of your choices for any given year. And I will show you just a quick tour. You'll get more information about what those options mean for you. But you'll see right here, the first block of options are a series of something called QI. Those are clinical quality indicators you can work on. These are specific, I must mention though, these are specific to Minnesota and involve a couple of different, even though they are very similar to ones you see elsewhere, for instance, on Nursing Home Compare given by CMS or on those reports that CMS offers to you. We do little adjustments that are specific to Minnesota for several of these, and then that actually give you more kind of credit. Specifically, if you have certain residents who might make it more likely that you'll get the condition happening in your facility. We also do more risk adjustment to these indicators. And I won't go into discussion of the risk adjustment here on this video. You'll notice here as we scan down, you get a jump between number 17 and number 21. That just lets you know we do have several indicators that are not available to be selected this round. The reason for that is we have a kind of a pause happening right now in Minnesota as we determine what the state is going to do for the switchover from the MDS resident assessment over to the PDPM resident assessment. That is something that thankfully the QIs that are affected in this area, which are functioning related, we will still have information about functioning. However, there might be some kind of changeover in that process that wouldn't make it something that would maybe allow you to get the full amount if depending on your facility situation, given how QIIP does set pretty ambitious goals in order to get that full amount. We wanted to make sure you would have the chance to get your full $350 per resident day since you deserve it. Scrolling down, you'll see the next block of available options that you can choose from. This block starts with QOL, and that is, of course, the quality of life resident interview that happens every year in your facility, usually in the fall or winter. This block of topics is actually something we're processing right now at this moment. So if you're in your portal goal sheets right now, taking a look and seeing your options already, you will notice that information may not be available for you to see right now, right at this moment as we're recording this video. However, we will have that up very shortly, and so you will certainly be able to have that information for you, and we really encourage you to take a look at making that a selection for your facility if it's appropriate for you. And your last options are right here at the bottom. You will see HCD, that stands for hospitalization or community discharge. So those are some kind of newly added options that we put in last year. Looking down, we see a couple buttons. These are real straightforward. We see a button where you can choose to save your option if you really aren't sure yet if it's the one you want to go with. It'll kind of put a bookmark in it, let you come back to it later. When you're finally ready as a facility to submit prior to the deadline, you will click this submit button. And lastly, this is sort of your Bible here, your go-to. This last button, the instruction manual, will have everything you need to know that is covered in this video in a book form, so it's something that you can easily share, or if that's just how you prefer to get your information. Now that you've had a chance to see what the QIIP page looks like, let's take a quick look at the goal sheet. And again, this is really the main document you'll be using during your selection process. Your goal sheet will show you all of the available topics that we discussed and how your facility would need to do to get the full $350 payment. Here is your facility's goal sheet that you'll be spending a lot of quality time with to make sure you pick what would work well for your facility. I will walk through what you're looking at here just so you get an idea of, get a tour of what the sheet includes. The top immediately lets you know what is our baseline, what time period are we talking about. You can see here this baseline ends December 31st, 2022. And as a reminder, these quality indicator reports cover 12 months of information. In this case, your baseline will cover January 1st through December 31st, 2022. You'll see similar information at the top of all the other ensuing pages that show you your other quality options. Across the top of the page, you'll see the column headers that I'll quickly describe for you. The first is how your facility did on that indicator or option for that time period. The second column over is the standard deviation. And this is a statistic or a calculation that we do whenever we want to know how similarly a bunch of providers, in this case, nursing home providers, are doing on a topic in the whole state. So we're going to use that statistic to figure out the following columns. The next column over is option 1 that DHS uses to decide what you're going to give you for your goal. Option 1 is a goal using the standard deviation statistic that is literally just a subtraction, just a math, really easy math here, where we take how you did for this baseline, this 8%, what this standard deviation amount is, which would be a fair amount of improvement, that's 6%. Subtract that, we get down to almost 2% as a final result. So that's one option for a goal. The other option for a goal, option 2, that DHS would use would be one using the percentiles. This is another statewide statistic that is often used. You'll see it in quality indicator reports that the federal government puts out often, where we decide 25% of providers are doing less than a certain amount of something, or 25% of providers are doing more than a certain amount of something. For the QIs, we want the QIs to go down. So we're setting the 75th percentile, for instance, for this top QI, this behavior, at 12%. We can see right away this provider with their baseline at 8% is doing better than that number. So they're under that 75th percentile. That's a good thing. Because of that, we're going to come to our final number. This is the most important column of the whole sheet. If you don't care about anything else on this sheet, only care about this last column. This is the goal column that tells you what you need to get to and what is a good or not a good choice for your facility. In this case, you can see it is the same number in this column, this standard deviation column, as it is here at the end. This green number, it's almost 2%. That's the number this facility would have to reach in order to get the full amount for QIIP. You'll see, of course, we have different colors showing. This is our way to try and warn you of what would be a good or a not good choice to choose. The green is the key. Please, please, please try and pick the green choices in order to make the best choice for your facility. Those are the ones that your facility is doing quote unquote poorly enough at baseline to make sure we can give you the chance of a full payment by the end. The red one down here, red NA, means not available. Red means your facility is doing too well on a topic, or we literally just didn't have any information available to calculate what your facility is doing. This often happens if your facility is a short stay focused facility. These are all about long stay in this particular case. So we won't know how you're doing in that case. Please don't pick any red topics. Finally, you might see some that are light blue. And the light blue is kind of a gray area. It's a risk. What it means is your facility doesn't have a lot of people in to look at for that topic. It's a borderline. And we might come to the end of the year and find that there aren't enough to even run a number for you. And then that leaves DHS in a kind of awkward position where we would need to kind of be creative in how we calculate that number. We don't like to do that. We want to make sure we give you solid numbers. So again, returning back to our main idea, please pick the green. So moving on, one area that we get lots of questions about, understandably, is what are the timelines that we have to expect for this program. How do we manage that? And thankfully, QIIP, once you kind of get your mind wrapped around it, is actually pretty straightforward and easy to predict because it's the same kind of pattern every year. It's kind of like expecting that the state fair is going to be in August or September every year, that kind of thing. So every year, we always take a look at how your facility did on all of that quality information the year prior. We then have your facility have some time with your quality information to see what works best for you, and you'll get a chance to hear how you can do that in a moment. Before July 1st, that is the key date to remember. You will be letting us know via the portal that form that you want to work on a certain topic. Starting that July 1st, you'll have a chance to work for an entire year on your chosen topic, July 1st through the following June 30th. After that June 30th, it's up to DHS then to calculate how your facility did compared to that prior baseline time. And then finally, as the last step of the process, we will pay out however much you earned in the following rate year, which this year will be 2025. Now that you've seen that the goal sheet has a whole lot of information on there, one topic that we often also get asked about is those middle columns that have data about the calculations needed to arrive at our goal. What is that all about, and how does that work? Here's an example of how that comes about. So say that we have one of the topic areas, which is about bladder incontinence getting worse or being at its worst. This picture just shows you how all of the facilities in the state are doing at any given time. And you can see it's a pretty wide spread. Each one of these blue bars is a picture showing how that facility did. And we have facilities doing less than 10% of their residents having that issue for them, all the way up to these facilities at the far end of the spectrum on the right are almost at 70% of their residents having that issue. So here's an example for setting a goal using that standard deviation method. That's the first way that we take a look at how to set a goal for your facility. This is the way that we set a goal if your facility is similar to all the other facilities in the state, or comparable to all the other facilities in the state. This facility, when they look at their goal sheet, they see, well, I've got a number there, a baseline rate of this QI of 30% of my folks having this issue. And in this case, we'll be really simple on ourselves and say that there were 100 residents in their census. So that's 30 people who are having this care issue. On their goal sheet, we are going to show them that their goal to get to is 18%. We got there by taking the standard deviation, figuring that out on the whole state, and then subtracting it. In this case, on this QI, the standard deviation for this QI is 12%. And that number is just a number that gives you an idea of how similar all the facilities in the state are to each other on a care issue. Some facilities are actually quite similar to each other, for instance, on how they're doing on physical restraint use. People have really reduced that. Some facilities, as you see here, there's quite a spread on how people are doing about managing continence for bladder. Just by subtracting down that 12%, you will see they need to get down to 18% after their performance gets to the end. And in real terms for this facility, that would mean they had 30 people on their baseline. They would need to help 12 people with their incontinence to get down to those 18 people out of their 100 people census that are still having that care issue. And in a perfect world, maybe they would actually even do better. They would have even fewer people have that care issue by the time they were done working on it. However, we also had the case of facilities that are looking at topics where they're really, really struggling and doing far, far beyond what the state average would be. So in this case, this facility would show a different goal for them. In this case, we would use a different option, which is using a percentile to tell them where to go. This facility also has 100 residents for their census, and instead, for their baseline year, they were having 66% of those people triggering that QI. That's 66 people out of that 100. If we went ahead and used that same standard deviation approach as we showed you before, they would only need to get down to 54% for their goal, which would be still over half of their residents, and would still put them in pretty much the kind of top rank there on the numbers of folks who are having this problem. Instead, we're going to set their care goal at 38%. That number is the 75th percentile of the state at this time in this example. That means that there's still 25% of providers who are having that issue, but it is a significant improvement for that facility to go from 66 out of their 100 people down to 38 out of their 100 people having this care issue. It would mean a real difference in the lives of those residents. So now that we've covered how we set your goals at DHS, we'll get more into detail on how your facility can make the right choice for you. And I will hand it off to Kim Class.
Thanks, Teresa. My name is Kim Class, and I'm the Quality Improvement Nurse Specialist for our division. I assist facilities with writing PIPs and choosing QIIPs. When choosing a QIIP, there's some things that we should think about. And one of those, and we also have options. So you can choose a QI, or you can choose a hospitalization indicator, or a QOL. For my little part that I'm going to talk about here, I'm just going to focus on the QOLs. The QIs. And things to keep in mind, so when you're choosing these QIIPs, is what are you currently working on, and then if you chose a QIIP last year, did you meet that indicator? And if you didn't, and if you still have room for improvement, I would choose it again, because you've already laid the groundwork down with staff and education and looking at your system. So it's just a matter of going back again and auditing, making sure people are doing things the way that you had them laid out, and then making sure that, we're re-educating staff, residents, and families. And then if your facility is doing a PIP, if I was you, I would be choosing the same indicators, because then you can double the funding. So you'll be getting paid for QIIP along with getting paid for PIP, because any improvement too, you receive funding through QIIP. And then I would also look at, are you doing a QAPI project? What is the facility working on? Is there an indicator that aligns with that project? And then looking at choosing that. And then, is the facility working on any survey citations? And then, do any of those indicators align with that? And that way you're keeping the education coming, and you're still working on improving that area, and then getting money in the end for it. So now we'll take a look at the goals sheet. And Teresa, like Teresa said, this is 4 quarters. It's a year's worth of data, ends in December. And so when I'm looking down this goals sheet, if you're not really working on anything right now, or you really don't know what to choose, or maybe you're just now coming on and going, oh wow, I forgot, we need to do this before the 1st of July. I would look at these indicators and think, okay, where are my green areas? And so here you have depression, you have the continence, the whole domain for continence, you have infections, and falls with injury, weight loss, pain, and then pressure ulcers for the long stay residents. And then we're missing those 3 function indicators that Teresa talked about, and then range of motion. So those are my options that I can choose right now. If I want to do something quick, say, okay, I just figured out, hey, I got to do this, one of the areas might be looking at indwelling catheters, because that's something that you can focus on and do quickly, because a resident shouldn't have a catheter in place unless there is a valid justification, medical justification for it. So you might want to start out by auditing who are those residents with those catheters, and then looking at, how you're going to go about reducing that. And the other thing too is when I'm looking at this is I could think, oh, depression, I score kind of high there. That might be an area where I want to look at too. Might not be so quick to get to, but we could lay the groundwork. And so when I'm looking at this too, I'm also looking at the QI data that matches this time frame, and then our March QI data. So I want to see, have we improved any? Are things staying the same? Are they gotten worse? So this is the December QI data right here that we're using for QIIP. So when we're looking at the quality indicator report, what's new this year is Teresa's now taken the observed facility rate, and instead she's now included the numerator and the denominator for each one of these indicators. The numerator tells us, it's the first number, and it tells us how many of those residents triggered in that area, and the denominator tells us how many residents were at risk for triggering in that area. And so this is nice to look at because it does give us an idea about how many residents are triggering there and who we need to focus on. And the other thing to keep in mind is because this is 4 quarters worth of data, you may have the same residents triggering in that same time frame. So you're going to have to look at your report, your CASPER report, to make sure you figure out who those residents that are triggering. Then the next thing I want to do is I want to look at the March data, because that tells us more recently what's going on in the facility. So if I look at those indicators again, I can see, oh, look at now depression has a sad face. And there's more people triggering in there. So that tells us that this is really an area that needs to improve because it's actually getting worse. And then if I go down and I look at the indwelling catheters, I can see the score's the same, and those are the same people that are triggering. There's 14 people. I need to identify who those people are, and then start my plan to figure out how I'm going to improve that, which would be pretty easy to do because we shouldn't have catheters in place, and it's just a matter of removing them. And so I would think in the first 3 months, from July to September, the end of September, I should be able to, educate staff in that time frame about catheter use, who should have them and who shouldn't have them. Also audit to make sure that this is correct data. We always want to make sure we go back to the MDS nurse who was coding this, making sure that we do have correct data here, and then go from there with education. So tips for QIIP 2026. So when we're looking ahead, you want to make sure that you're looking at what did you choose this year? And then looking to see, are we improving? And then if we haven't made the goal, we can choose that indicator again. It's always good to look at the September QI report. This is going to tell us where we're headed for the December, because we always do January through December to get the baselines for the QIIP reports. And then also looking ahead, if we're looking at quality of life, we might want to look at the 2023 observed scores for the quality of life data. And then again, any indicators. And that's it for me. Back to Teresa. Thanks.
Well, thank you so much, Kim. That was very helpful. And I also wanted to share with folks one last chunk of information that might be helpful in choosing your topic, especially if you either aren't working on other quality improvement areas, don't have any particular quality concerns in survey, MDH survey or anything else, or generally just want to try and see how you can optimize your choices as much as possible. So this is another option where you just think about what have other folks done, how successful have they been over time. So we have had, as mentioned, many years of experience now with QIIP. So the following few pictures are going to be of all the experience we've had so far of QIIP. You can see right away this top bar that We have a really good success rate in general. Dave mentioned there's like a third and a third of folks in this last round who were successful. When we look at the whole life of QIIP, it's even better. I mean, geez, we have about 3/4 of facilities are getting something. Those are the two darker green bars on the top. And that's just really great, especially if you might have an instance where a facility has signed up and then there was a kind of a transfer over of information and people maybe aren't even sure that they're working on something. You might even still do well, even if you weren't actively having interventions in place. So it's a good thing to do regardless of what you're planning to do over the year. Although, of course, if you're really being planful, it's great to line up those actions like Kim has described. The middle bar shows you that there's less of the dark green, so that tells you that quality of life is generally a little trickier to move. And part of that, so you see that there's a 40% of folks aren't making a target, whereas 60% are making partial or all of the target. Part of that is the timing of just having one interview in the fall or winter the prior year, and then kind of gearing up to try and make a difference that upcoming fall or winter. That can be challenging for folks. And another thing is just you really have to, kind of relatedly, you have to be on top of your information. If you've got it, you've got to really be able to look at what those questions say in the topic area and kind of hone in with your residents to dig a little deeper and find out if they're concerned about XYZ question, how can you jump on those questions and help make a difference kind of quickly within 3 months or 4 months or 5 months or whatever timing you've got. So it's still a very worthy cause because people can really be effective, and I'll show you some more of that. Finally, the bottom bar shows you quality indicators do tend to be a little bit more of a sure bet. You see 75% of folks made something. So you'll also see very quickly part of that is due to just people tending to choose it more often. Here's a just quick snapshot of how quality of life has looked in terms of how often things get chosen and then how successful folks have been over time. So you can see right away the bars are how often people choose quality of life, and the numbers across the bottom show you it's pretty rarely chosen, these topics. The most common is the activity domain. That's, meaningful activities. So that's 4% of facilities. Food is next at 3%. So you can kind of understand that people really it makes sense to kind of choose something that's more tangible. You can see it, feel it. And also those are areas where statewide facilities really have had challenges with their activity programming, with their food service offerings. So those are great bets if you're not doing well. And what you can see as well is that even given all of that, the line going from left to right is how successful folks have been. And interestingly, almost 2/3 of folks have gotten something if they've been working on caregiving, which is kind of a service domain about how well staff are treating residents, if they feel like people are glad to be there, if they feel safe with staff, that kind of thing. So that's encouraging, and it's kind of rarely chosen. So that's an opportunity for improvement there for people interested in improving their service area as a goal during this year. You can also see environment is a little harder to move. That's questions about the physical environment, but it doesn't mean, in general, one thing I always kind of am hesitant about sending the wrong message when we share this kind of information. This is just a guideline showing you what other folks, across the whole state have encountered, and it sure doesn't mean it should be what anyone does in their facility. Everything's very much driven by your priorities, your quality improvement actions that you're already doing, and what your staff or your families or residents are suggesting is important to work on. So this is just another piece of the puzzle if it's helpful to you. Turning to the clinical areas, you can see right away, so the popularity again is across the bottom, and these are more popular to work on. What's really interesting is, and kind of nice, is that the most popular topic statewide is working on continence improvement. So that's 17% of facilities. And you can also see that's really good alignment because the success rate for continence is 80%. That's the line going left to right. So that's a really nice matchup. It's nice to see that an area where people are really liking to choose to work on it is an area where they're being very successful. What's interesting too, right next to it, you see that this psychosocial domain, which has depression and behavioral symptoms, that's only chosen by 5% of facilities, and it's even more successful potentially for you to choose. So it really depends on how you're looking individually at your facility. Maybe that's not an area for you that's a problem. So it's really, really individualized to your facility. And once again, just as a side note, on the far left, you see that the least successful or the trickiest domain area has been functioning for folks. That's about 60% of folks have been successful. And that is kind of understandable because functioning is a challenging area to move, but it's certainly important as well. One thing I will also note is that, as we've mentioned, we have a couple of those new QIs regarding transitions, hospitalizations, and community discharges. We can't show you anything about those because we just added them last year. So got nothing to show yet. What's really nice and exciting to hear is that we had 13 providers when we offered them last year just jump in and decide to pick them. We were very pleased and touched and encouraged to see that had happened. So we'll see how those do once we get some experience with them. Taking us back to the portal for just a moment, we'll wrap up this section of our talk by just showing you again how you will find out how you did. Kim has already discussed how you should be monitoring, how that can be helpful. You can keep track of how you're doing by the reports that we show on the tabs up above here on your homepage. When we're finally ready to show you how you did, so you can kind of get ready for budgeting or planning your choices for next year, we will, as I mentioned, put that up on that year's link up here on your QIIP page. 2024 is not available yet because we will begin calculating that later this year. So we'll take a look at 2023 and show you an example of how that will look. The nice thing about this report is it literally just walks through the calculation that you've seen in kind of bits and pieces throughout this presentation. So it's a nice reference to have when you're wondering how you did, how this program works, etc. This facility worked on antipsychotics in 2023. And you can see right away, I'll walk you through, they had a baseline of 13%. They were required to get down to 6%. And they did a little bit of improvement. So they got a little bit shaved off of there. They were reducing some of their antipsychotic use. The next line down says they needed to improve by 6% percentage points, and it gives you the math, so you don't have to do it yourself on the side there. They were able to improve by 0.11 percentage points. Again, gives you the math. And finally, that gives you a proportional, just a kind of a divided those two lines together to show you what proportion of the goal did you get. Your goal is to get, of course, 100% or more of your goal. And again, if you get 0% of your goal, it's okay, there's no harm. So ultimately, when we get down to the bottom here, we see the facility earned 6 cents. And again, there's the math for you. And what's funny about QIIP, it's easy to look at that 6 cents and think, oh, that's not a lot of money. But once you do the math, for this facility in particular, we did the math and multiplying their 6 cents by the resident days, they made over $800 for the year. So that's $800 more than they had before. So we really can't encourage enough going ahead and signing up if you haven't already. And at the very end of the page, you can have the reference so that you know what times you're thinking of when you're looking back on and kind of coordinating with your quality reports. Now I will go ahead and turn it over to Dave to wrap us up.
Thank you, Teresa, and thank you, Kim. Thanks, everybody, for participating today. We really hope this was helpful. We want you to win. As you guys improve quality goals, we're able to financially incentivize this to help you along the way and gain some revenue for your facility. And as a reminder, we also have the PIP Bootcamp information in the description below, another program that we offer here at DHS. If you guys do get stuck and need some assistance and help in any way, please feel free to reach out to us. Our emails are now on the screen. If you have any numbers questions, some of the data, Teresa can help with that. Choosing your options, Kim can help. I'm on there as well. So please never hesitate to reach out to us for support. Thanks for participating in QIIP, and everybody have a wonderful day. So what is QIIP? Let me explain the acronym. It's QIIP. One more time. What is QIIP? Keep smiling. Okay. Quit laughing, Dave. Sheesh. All right. Keep in mind there are no reporting requirements for QIIP. It's the best.